This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Scott Tabor joins us now, former College World Series Razorback pitcher. Now, Scott, everyone's going to make something out of Tony Vitello and Dave Van Horn.
Well, Ty sure is. That's for sure.
Back in the day,
Ty's rooting for a riot. Sorry,
I'd like to see one. Back in the day, did Norm ever jaw at another coach? Was there another, not fist fight, but was there an altercation that Norm ever got into with the Texas coach or someone else?
No, but if there was, put your money on Norm. There wasn't anybody in the league that could take Norm back in the day. Probably still today. They jawed back and forth a little bit, and back then, Norm was on you to get on the other team. It's called bench jockeying, and I mean, you could just rag them about everything, and there were very few sacred things. Try to get a reaction, try to get a pitcher rattle, especially if you had a young pitcher out there. And some of the stuff that was done was hilarious. Texas was the best at it. They had a whole thing orchestrated up in their fan base, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, Norm he'd get on them pretty hard. Pretty hard. You
bring up Texas. Does this game, this series, does it feel like a build-up for Texas, or is it still nowhere near that?
Well, there's a lot more tradition in the Arkansas-Texas because of the football. I think the Arkansas-Tennessee baseball, because of Vitello and Van Horn and their relationship, and I don't think it's as bad a relationship as everybody wants it to be. It's always nice to have a villain, but I don't think there's much villain there as people are making it to be. Of course, I'd like to see a nice little wrestling match out at home plate. That'd make it even better down the road. But yeah, I think they kind of are, and because they're becoming a powerhouse. Arkansas is an established powerhouse. Tennessee came up last year and had that fantastic team that just failed at the end. So I think they are kind of becoming Texas.
Scott, Hunter Holland, the lefty for Arkansas, is going to get the ball tonight, and he'll be on the mound. Walk us through the kind of the mental setup. When it's kind of like being the starting quarterback, or you got a big game, big weekend. You've known for several days it's going to be yours on Friday night. What's that like to mentally prepare and to get yourself ready for maybe the biggest atmosphere you've ever played in?
I'll tell you, when you become the Friday guy, it's really, really the biggest vote of confidence that you can have from your teammates and your coaches. They're saying, you're our guy. We want you to take the ball first night and just get us a win. You go out there and back then it was go out there and throw 9. Now let's get out there and give us 5 or 6. We're pretty happy with that. But it makes you feel good inside. It makes you feel good about all the work you put in. But he'll go through his mental prep. He'll go through, I had some routines that I kind of went through that I did the same thing pretty much every time, every day, every Friday. I'd sit up on the hill and listen to Jimmy Buffett in my four-door Granada before the game, watching everybody take batting practice. And, he'll have the stuff that he goes through, and they go through the scouting reports, and the analytics now are so far off the wall, it'd be too much work for me, too much math. But let the catcher take care of that. I think they do a really good job of prepping everybody for it. Yeah. So he'll just go through the whole thing, and it's we make a bigger deal out of it than it is to the players. It's just baseball. Once they get down there and step between the lines, then it's just baseball. Still 60 feet 6 inches, and you got to throw good pitches.
So beyond just throwing strikes, what's important early? What will you be looking for early beyond just finding the zone?
Establishing yourself, establishing your fastball. You always have to establish your fastball. Then your off-speed pitches. The further you get into the game, then you can work backwards in the count. Some games, you don't know what their scouting report will be. They may be early count fastball hitters, and so they may have him, starting off with a lot of off-speed stuff and then coming back in with a fastball. You kind of get a feel for the game. You see how the crowd's into it. You see, you get through your first inning or two, and you see how your hitters are responding to their ace. And it's a lot of ebbs and flows during a baseball game. And pitchers, you can see it. Pitchers sometimes have them locked down, and all of a sudden they just lose it for one reason or another. They just lose it, and it's generally because they're trying to get a little too fine, and they grab a little bit too much at the plate. So hopefully he can keep that focus. And the fans will get into the game tonight. I think it's going to be a really, really exciting time.
Tabes, how worried should we be about as fans this Jared Wegner deal and his hairline fracture in his hand on his thumb? I mean, I don't know if you've been through that before, but obviously if he's out of the lineup, I mean, He's been one of your power hitters this year. How does that change things if he's not able to play this weekend?
Well, it's an opportunity for somebody else. There's a lot of really, really good talent on that team. And Jared came in and he's exceeded expectations. You hate it for the player, you hate it for the team, but they'll jockey somebody else into that position, and they'll have plenty of sticks in the lineup. Hopefully, he can play through it. And you don't know, hairline fracture. That's just kind of it's so obtuse. You just don't know exactly what it's going to be, how much pain it's going to be. In his swing, hitters don't generally use their thumbs as much as people think they do, but they just have to kind of wait and see. Hopefully, he can swing it.
Tabor with us this morning, former College World Series Razorback pitcher. Scott, I want to ask you about Tony Vitello. You mentioned just the possibility of something. I said yesterday, I was pretty adamant about that the biggest story of this weekend is whether Jared Wagner can play or not. What do you think, Arkansas fans, how would they feel if Dave Van Horn kind of helped move along the idea of him becoming the next head coach when he steps down? How would that go?
Some of the fans wouldn't like it. Personally, I like Vitello. I wouldn't mind having my son play for Vitello. I think he's a fiery guy, a very knowledgeable guy. He wouldn't have gotten the head coach job leaving Arkansas. He wouldn't have gotten that job at Tennessee if he wasn't an outstanding coach. And he's shown it with his record, and he's shown it with his production. Great recruiter. Kids love him. Every coach is a little different in the way they handle situations and the way they fire their players up. He's a little bit younger than Dave. Dave and I are the same age, so he's a lot younger than Dave. I wouldn't mind having him. I think the fan base, because of the success that he would have here, would embrace that. Everybody kind of likes to see a little chippiness. I think some of the antics are a little over the top, especially when they're against us. So they get multiplied when they're against us.
Well, it should be a fun weekend. I know we're all looking forward to watching beginning tonight, and Scott, we'll catch up with you next Friday as we're at the halfway mark. If you get three in this weekend. So.
Yeah, we're finding out a little bit about our team. Still, there's nothing set in stone as far as our starting pitchers. Everything's still kind of up in the air. But it's that way for every team, and injuries happen, and we'll work our way through it.
All right. We'll talk to you next Friday, Scott.
All right. Go Hogs.
Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at BetOnline. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts.